Hello and welcome to Talk Art. This is a show where we delve into the world of the artist and interview artists in the local area. Talk Art is sponsored by Silicon Valley Open Studios. For 25 years during the first 3 weekends in May, hundreds of local artists open their studio to the public. For more information, you can go to the website svos.org. Or you can get an artist directory free at your public library. For this show, Tamara Gerbis has agreed to interview me about my own art. Tamara has worked internationally for 15 years as a video producer, director, and media vision midwife. She has her own company, Phenomenal Films, where she creates media with meaning. So welcome, Tamara, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sally. Let me tell you a little bit about Sally now. Sally is an abstract painter who has developed a new art form called dynamic symbolism. She has produced video and also written a blog about this new art form and has exhibited frequently within the Bay Area since 1994, and I am so happy to be on her show. Thank you, Sally.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Great. Let's get started by talking a little bit about some history I know about you, and I know you traveled quite a bit as a child, so I'm wondering, what were these travels about and how did you wind up in California?
Well, my father was quite a traveler. He is a businessman, and he was given the opportunity to work in South Africa during the 1970s. So as a young child in elementary school, I lived in South Africa and went to school there, and we traveled all around southern Africa, visiting game reserves and interacting with the local people there as much as we could during the apartheid years. And then we moved, when I was in middle school and high school, I lived in Southern California along the beaches, and I spent a lot of time outdoors. And when I went to college, I went to Stanford University, and so that's how I moved up here to the Bay Area. And also, while we were in South Africa, we spent several trips traveling from Johannesburg to Los Angeles. So we traveled through Europe, and we traveled through South America, and then one trip we went around the world and visited Japan and a little bit of India and in the Indian Ocean. So I was very lucky as a child. My parents, we traveled a lot.
Great exposure, and then you didn't have wanderlust in your early 20s and need to travel everywhere. So I believe you studied languages, didn't you, at Stanford?
Yes, yes, I studied. My major was actually German studies. I was interested in the culture, particularly art history, and the psychology of the early 1900s. So that was pretty much my focus, that, and I was also interested in the Green Party, which started in Germany. So that was my focus there, plus languages. I studied German and Spanish and Russian.
And we'll have a chance to see how that all ties into your art in a bit, but I first wanted to ask you how you came up with the concept, I mean, I believe you coined it, of dynamic symbolism.
Well, dynamic symbolism I came up with several years ago, I think about 15 years ago. I had been painting for quite a while, and what I wanted to do was to find out how I paint the paintings I do. Dynamic symbolism, my style, is it's abstract, but it's not planned. I don't plan the paintings, I don't do any sketches generally. I spend a lot of time doing pen and pencil sketches just on scraps of paper, but not for particular paintings. And so I started seeing pictures in my paintings when they were done, and I always wondered how I did that. So I studied artists, and I studied a lot of art history to try to find something that was similar. And I've been looking on the internet, I've done a lot of research, and I never found anything that was similar, or the same. Or I could say it was in my genre. So I had to name it myself. So it's dynamic because it changes, the art, and what I see in the art changes. And there's symbols in it that I've done quite a bit of research on symbols, so I decided to call it dynamic symbolism.
Great. And I do think it is unique unto itself, but I also see that you maybe have been influenced by some other isms in the art world. So tell us a little bit about your major art influences on your work.
Well, I started painting with a lot of color, and I started using pastels. And I sent a painting to my grandmother, who is also an artist. She is a landscape oil painter. And she sent me a poster by Kandinsky and said, you should look into Kandinsky because your art is similar. And so I did a lot of research, and when I was at Stanford, I studied in Berlin for 9 months. And I lived there. We were surrounded by the wall in the 1980s, and I did a lot of research into Kandinsky. And he is, he was one of the first abstract painters. He was the first non-objective artist, which means that he didn't have objects in his paintings. And he was very focused on how color influences the human psyche and consciousness and feelings, how people feel about different colors. And his whole point was to influence people spiritually. So I thought that was interesting. What happens in my art is I don't have particular ideas or symbols that I'm painting consciously, but they come up unconsciously. So I was often tried to find that. So Kandinsky, the way I look at the paintings and the way I've learned to look at them is similar to the way the Cubists look at paintings, where you look at one object from several different angles at the same time, or parts of features or half faces, things like that. A lot of that kind of imagery shows up in dynamic symbolism too.
And what I like about them is that they're always shifting depending on, even the same person can see several things on different viewings, but also people in general just see other shapes and meaning within them, so therefore the subjective is always completely there. Wonderful. Well, I also noticed that your videos will eventually show us something along those lines, but before we go there, I wanted to ask you about your role as an artist and what you believe that is in society.
Well, I think the role of an artist is really about changing consciousness, or pushing the ideas about consciousness and where, and also how people see. I think that my art and art in general is a very safe way for people to have different opinions and to actually see differently. But like people who haven't seen my art before will point out pictures in them that they see that I've never seen before. But when they point them out, I see them. They just connect the lines differently. So,
can you tell us about one that was the most unusual or shocking? Do you have an example where you just went, oh my gosh?
Yeah, I do. When we look at the JPEGs, that's when I'll talk about that.
Okay, great.
Well, let's look at the paintings first.
Yes, all right, that'd be great if we get to see them live, which is wonderful.
Yeah, the painting that's behind you, that's blue and silver and black, that one I call Three Wise Women. And I was at a point where I really want to expand my marketing ideas, and I really want to expand my audience for this art. And I was thinking about, I would like some helpers or some kind of helping, and so that's the kind of thought I wanted to have before, for the painting. That was my pre-thought. No ideas, and I like blue. I was thinking blue mostly. And this is the painting that turned out, and I see three separate images, especially the one in the middle looks like a butterfly to me. So
beautiful. I like the fact that you also have started to, or you've probably been doing this for a while, but that you also mixed metallics within.
Yes,
whether
well,
silver
that's new with acrylic paints.
Yes.
I love the metallic paints. I do a lot of metallic paints.
I wore this shirt just in dedication to that.
So, and then this painting here I call Fertility, and it's just bursting with natural images. And when I painted this one, I took photographs of it in progression, so as it was going. And I also took notes for a blog that I created to explain, to show people that I don't really plan, that there isn't a sketch, and that images form and I don't really see everything as I'm painting. So I created a video about this with some of the narrative. So that's what we'd like to take a look at now.
This is dynamic symbolism.
I started using a long-handled number 16 round brush and primary yellow paint for all the shapes. There is an awkward shape, sort of an upside-down pear with a long stem, and it bothers me. I added cadmium yellow dark hue, then cadmium orange, then cadmium medium red. The upside-down pear that attracted my attention now has a dark yellow eye. I see an animal face forming, maybe a deer with a yellow neckline. Across the center I see lots of insect-like shapes, locust or praying mantis perhaps. I added naphthol crimson, what I consider real red. Outside, the poison oak is turning red and orange. The same pear shape now looks more calf-like, with its large yellow nose, especially next to the deer with the red nose, and the broad expanse of yellow antler spreading across the canvas towards the top left. The two orange lines leaning right across the top center definitely seem like an insect antenna. I added greens that I mixed using primary yellow and phthalo green blue shade. My vegetable and flower garden is getting a second wind with beautiful crimson pineapple sage flowers. A pair of hummingbirds joined me there this morning. I see a contingency of little dancing figures and couples starting to form along the bottom edge and up the left side. Magenta alone and mixed with white really brightened the whole painting. I begin to think rainforest and that I should use more green. As usual, the question is, how much white do I leave? Is white a color in this piece? The deer in the center has taken on two gender identities, buck on the left and doe on the right. There is a single head with ears currently white outlined in orange or red. I connected the large yellow pieces of the antler together and attached it to the deer's head with cadmium yellow deep hue. Deer are rutting in the meadow outside my window. The piece Fertility was completed in early January 2010. The images are abstract in a cubist-influenced way. Strangely interrupted, overlapping, partial features curve across the 3-foot by 4-foot canvas. I see what I see based on my own visual influences, but you are free to make up your own interpretations. The red circle in the lower left could be the nose of an otter, with the red-orange oval creating one eye. A red, orange, yellow, and green cockatiel head in the center top right peers down with one dark yellow eye looking for food. To the far left, a white face with bulging yellow cheek and green eye blows a new wind across the canvas. Or, a yellow yolk representing fertility and new beginnings rests there in the belly of the ancient clay goddess's shape. Swaying flowers explode from every corner with the promise of fruit. The white-faced deer with the flaming yellow antler, sweeping to the left, charges forward, head down, ready to engage the viewer for conquest of the herd.